Today, hello, good morning. Today is Juneteenth 2024, and what a beautiful day to celebrate the ending of slavery in the United States. But as we celebrate, we are also sobered by the realities of African diaspora and African American experience in these United States. And so we are really honored to continue to have conversations about this experience. And today we are blessed and honored to have Dr. Catherine Ridley-Merriweather. See, I call you by your government name.
Yes, you did. Oh, dear.
Yes, what I'd like to, first of all, introduce Dr. Ridley Merriweather a little bit and then have her talk to us about her journey and her experience. She's a PhD in health communication and population science and currently coordinates the Komen Tissue Bank here in Indianapolis, based at Indiana University Medical School. But she is a lady of many fronts and just recently held a wonderful conference at Indiana University discussing the issues of health equity. But without much ado, I would like Dr. Kathi Ridley-Merriweather to talk about herself.
Ah, thank you so much, Dr. Birhiray and Ms. Birhiray. I'm very happy to be here. I think this is a great idea to do this. Yes, so I'm happy to explain a little bit more about myself. So as you mentioned, which is great, I'm a health communication scholar. It's a rather rare degree to have. It is just what it says, communication experts focused on health. It's a very broad field. And so I came into what I do now and went back to school solely because I landed in a position at the IU Simon Comprehensive Cancer Center about in January of 2011. I landed just because fate and needed a job at the Komen Tissue Bank. And we always need to be careful to say the Komen Tissue Bank, so Susan G. Komen Foundation is very well known. And the full name of the tissue bank is the Susan G. Komen Tissue Bank at the IU Simon Comprehensive Cancer Center. So we are fully Indiana University. But when we first started, it was very hard to find funding, and we couldn't really find funding. And we went to the Komen Foundation and asked, and they said, sure, they believed in us. And the Komen Tissue Bank is a very weird bird. So it still takes actually a lot of explanation for people to understand what it is and to believe in us. But we have proved mighty and strong. And what is this? So what, 27 years later, we're still 27. No, 17 years later, we're still here. 27 is speaking it into the future, right? That'll be great.
Yes.
But yes, we're fully Indiana University, and the Komen Tissue Bank is the only biobank in the world that collects healthy breast tissue for purposes of research, for researchers around the world to use as their normal controls in their research. We take tissue from both men and women because there is definitely such a thing as male breast cancer, and it is severely understudied as well. And so my role at the Komen, I just happened to be in the right place at the right time with the right interests. And I was the only Black person in the office, and I'd only been there months. And they were about to hold a tissue collection event. When we do take tissue from, when people do donate their healthy breast tissue, it's this marvelous one-day event, and we take over an entire clinic. And it's just amazing. It's just so, I would love to invite you to come. And
I would love to.
either volunteer at one or just view it if you want. Yes, that will be great, because it really has to be seen to be believed. And so they were ramping up for an event, and they, of course, as people will do, turned to the Black person in the room and said, why aren't the Black people coming to donate their healthy breast tissue? And I say that, I mean, my colleagues are fabulous, and I was one of 5, so actually I was 20% of the group that was there. We are still very small. Even then, we were even smaller. And they did not do it. They did it just really wanting to get to. I expressed an interest, and so they asked, and I said, I don't really know, because my background was not heavily science at that time. It was much more the communication part of my job. And I said, I don't know. But as time went on, I was like, I really want to know more about it. And so let me see what I can do. And so I just kind of started trying some things, to just doing a little bit of research on my own, just knowing some things innately as a Black female. I said, I do know that you can't put a white woman on television and tell us it's a great thing to do, and then we're going to come running. I can't tell you that. That's not going to happen. But I strongly feel like we will do this, and I would do it. And I started thinking, well, I would do it because I have more knowledge about it. I'm here working in it, and I know how wonderfully the program is run. And I've learned something about the IRB, the Institutional Review Board that governs all studies. The KTB is a clinical trial. And so I kind of said, well, I started trying some things. Of course, I went into some churches, but things like that, and just kind of started asking around. And then the bug bit me, and I said, I really need to know more, and I need to know more in a very formalized and structured way. So I went back and got my master's in applied communication and focused on underserved or Black and brown groups and the culture of Black and brown people's health culture a little bit in that degree. Time went on. I finished my master's. I came back in. I realized that I'd been bitten by a research bug, and I'm not surrounded by researchers in my daily life. I mean, I am in the larger picture. I'm sitting in the middle of a cancer center, but our little corner of the world, I was the only researcher, but I was highly supported, both emotionally and with everything they could do for me, to know what I wanted to know. And so I went back. I decided, okay, I've got to go back and learn more about research and stop bugging my master's program mentor and making her tell me things. And she said, I have students. You're not a student anymore. I have students I need to spend my time with. So I was like, okay. So I became a student again and went back for my PhD. And that was one of the best decisions I've ever made. It was really hard. I am not I am not on the younger end of the educational scale. I am definitely a mature person. But I went back, and that was wonderful, because then I could really start doing some research on my own and really starting to learn just the whys and wherefores of these different populations, Black people and Latinos and Asian populations, and research and clinical trials and invasive. The Komen Tissue Bank is an invasive procedure to come, and we can't like osmosis the tissue out of your breath. We actually have to take it. It's a biopsy procedure. But the more I learned, the more certain I became that people will do this. People like me will do this if we do what we're supposed to do. And a lot of that had to do with education. And one of the beauties of not being a traditional student, and I was a non-traditional student in many ways. I mean, I was working full-time while getting my degrees. I had 2 previous careers, none of which had been in the sciences. I am arts-based and arts-born, and actually am still a card-carrying member of Actors Equity Association. I lived as I say made my living as an actor. That meant I was a really good waiter, but I did, for over 15 years, I lived in Chicago and was in theater and things like that. And so one of the best things I did was let that part of me flourish. And I did not know what I did not know. And so I approached everything from a very non-traditional standpoint. And so I started just having ideas and following through with my ideas. And I was blessed to be in a situation at the KTB where I was allowed to think in a new way. And I was allowed to just implement ideas that were, I won't say they were seen as radical. They just hadn't been thought of in the manner that I did, I guess. Was saying one time, it's not rocket science. And somebody said, stop saying that. What you're doing is really important. It's like, okay, all
Yes,
right.
it is important. It really is.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to interrupt you for a second because there are a lot of things you said. I want to unpack it a little bit. Um, you talked about being purposeful, but you also talked about age not being a reason not to pursue education. But you also talked about being aware of what our community needs.
Yes.
Those are three big things that you just talked about. And especially since we're really talking today about health equity and how it relates to the enslavement of people like you and I, and the fact that today we're celebrating the end of slavery. Your message to the younger people who may be in their careers and maybe they're not happy, or they might be happy, but they know that taking one additional step will take them to the next level. What is your advice?
I think that you're talking about young people, and I think that young people today, oh my gosh, I sound so old.
And not necessarily young people, even people
Or
our
even
age, who might have a desire, but they might feel, oh, gee, it's too late for me.
when I was growing up as a Black female uh, in the Midwest, we Black people here, I grew up in Indianapolis, and I look back at my childhood and realized if I had been elsewhere when I was a child, I would have had a completely different opportunity and a completely different life. I did not know what I did not know because we were, in the North. So I had some opportunities as I was growing up, and but still, Black families were very traditional here. They had to, they kind of consciously and subconsciously stayed within the lines. And so you were guided to choose a career that you were going to stay in, that you were going to, you were, I was considered privileged. My mom was a school teacher. My dad worked for the postal services. We certainly were not wealthy, but also I did not want for food or clothing. And so, I was definitely taught, not just by my parents or guided, but by our entire community. You need to go and be something for Black people. You have an opportunity to go to school, and you are going to learn, you are going to be able to apply it, but you need to choose your path now. You need to choose one path now, and you need to stay in that straight all the way through, and and make your mark, and which is all great and wonderful, but it makes you think that if you don't make that choice at 18, that you just, that's when you have to do it, right? If you don't
Yeah.
make the right choice at 18, you could make a wrong turn, and God knows where you're going to end up. And you really need to, and everything was about not doing things from the heart, but doing things from the security level. And I was an artist, I was like, I loved so many things about art and everything. And so So I did what I was told, and I went off to be an engineer. And I have a half of an engineering degree, which I bring up all the time. You know, when one of the maids that I've put something together, and I'll say I do have half of an engineering degree, but my soul was rotting, and because I went to a school where all you did was technical classes all day long. And while I enjoyed that, but I'm like, where's the foreign languages? Where are the arts? Where are the liberal arts? Where's this, where's the other sciences? And so, so to young people today, and not even young people, but anyone today, we are now in a time where you can go ahead and completely change your path. You can do it. You can, you don't have to stay where you are. And job opportunities are there, programs are there. You can retrain. You can just decide that your passion, whatever. My passion's changed. I mean, I'm still passionate about the arts for sure. I am still, but being put in this situation grew a passion in me that I did not even know was there. And I decided to follow it, and I had support, and nobody thought I was crazy, I guess. Although some people were like, "Ooh, it's kind of
Maybe a
late."
little bit.
Maybe a little bit. Yeah, it's like, you're gonna what? And but even especially from my elders, even what some might call negative feedback was not really negative feedback. It was caring. It was concern, because my father just passed away 2 weeks ago, which I shared with you yesterday.
Yes, I'm so
Uh,
sorry.
Thank you. He was 101 years old.
Wow.
Okay. He
Wow.
had seen in his lifetime horses, transportation by horse and buggy, not kidding, to me sitting in his hospital room with him when he was working from a remote situation, and he was fascinated by that. And so people today are in a situation that people like him never had an opportunity to do.
No, they didn't.
No, never had an opportunity to do. And I was blessed by that father and mother that, they were concerned, because they had that born in the early 1920s concern and worry, but they had an open-mindedness that always encouraged me to go for what I wanted to do. And people now have that opportunity regardless of how old you are. I don't have any problem sharing my age. God willing, and the creek don't rise in December, I will be 65 years old.
Hallelujah.
And yeah, and so I began this PhD journey, at the age of 59 or something. And so, people are like, there were people that were like, "Are you nuts?" But most of my surrounding people were, "Go for it." And, you know,
Yes.
yeah, the people at my work supported me. I was allowed to take daytime classes, during the workday. All those kinds of things are there for us now. And
Basically, go for it is the message there.
yeah,
Go for it.
go for it.
Don't allow your own fear to pull you back.
Exactly.
Um,
Especially if passion is leading you.
yes. But I want to go back to your dad, which is sort of totally tangential. I know we talked about losing your dad yesterday, and I expressed my condolences, which I want to express again. But there are two things about a person of color living to 101 years.
Hmm.
The first thing is, look at the degree of inequities that person faced in their lifetime.
Hmm.
And for them to survive those inequities,
Hmm.
including significant healthcare disparities, job disparities, discrimination, but in the kind of environment they were exposed to. And they are blessed with the genetic makeup to live to 101 years old. That is not something we should minimize. But second of all, I'm sure he shared with you first-hand knowledge of his experience. Someone born in the 1920s probably knew people who were born into slavery.
My his Yes. So I am very few generations away from slavery. My great grandfather was born into slavery. So my mother's father's father. Um, because my whole family waits till they're old and has children. So, um, but yeah, so definitely he knew. I mean, yes, he
You know,
did.
so that when people begin to talk about inequities and say, well, that's a long time ago. I mean, just using your family,
Yeah,
that's like you said, 2 generations ago.
yeah, yeah. Third, yeah, three, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, I have so many friends who they have to go back 7 generations to get to slavery, who they're even my age, their parents had, children in their 20s. Their
Yes.
parents had them in their 20s. We are a much later bearing family for some reason, and or children that are so spread apart that the babies of the family, are younger. And I didn't. So my father and health equity is a very interesting place to go. We could do a whole other conversation on that. So I will try to be brief. But my father grew up in Indianapolis, Indiana. Indianapolis, Indiana was a mecca for Black thrivelihood, if you will. Um, I am looking out my window right now. I live in an historic part of Indianapolis, Indiana, called Ransom Place, and it's an historic neighborhood. It is one of the neighborhoods that surrounds Indiana Avenue. Indiana Avenue is legendary, not just here, but all over the country. So if anybody's watching this and wants to know more about it, look it up. It was a thriving mecca of Black businesses and music and everything. And so my father and my mother, both of whom grew up here, had an opportunity that many Black families do not have. They had an entire area they did not need to leave, that was owned and managed and run by Black people. Anything you needed was available in this area. They did not need white people to live, to purchase. They went to Black owned stores. They ate at Black owned restaurants. Their shoes were cobbled by Black cobblers. Their suits were made by Black tailors there. And furthermore, white people wanted to come into the area because the music was phenomenal. And the Madam Walker, the Madam C.J. Walker Theater I could literally throw a rock and hit it just about. So the first Black female millionaire who built a theater here. And so the arts, the entertainment, it's just an amazing area. And my father and mother, who had to move out, they were born in this area, raised in this area, but circumstances happened and they were forced to move out. I grew up hearing about Indiana Avenue and hearing about them wanting to get back down to this area because of what had been bred in them from childhood. And so they went to Black physicians. So interestingly, Indianapolis, decided, the KKK moved in and made the leaders of Indianapolis and became some of the leaders, and determined that these Black people have too many freedoms here. They were going to white schools. They were allowed to leave this area and go into the downtown areas and shop with limitations, but shop at the white stores. And the KKK did not like that. And so the powers that be decided that, we need to change this. And so they decided that they would start with building a high school and forcing all of the Black students to now attend this high school. So they built Crispus Attucks High School and made all the Black children go there. So my oldest uncle, my dad's oldest brother, graduated from Shortridge High School. But my dad's second oldest brother and my dad graduated from Attucks, because by then these were instituted. And so they made them go there, and then they said, and all these Black teachers need to teach there. So this was, made to separate and to push down. But what happened? Now my father and my mother and everybody like that, they were all taught by Black PhDs and Black physicians in this high school. They ended up, the white people that were trying to press us down, ended up creating a ridiculously educated
Yes.
generation of Black people who were learning from the best, and who, it's like, anytime you try to do something against a people, it's always going to come back and bite you where it hurts. And so they created this Black Mecca of highly intelligent, highly educated people who went on to create more people like them. And so that Indianapolis, that happened here. I don't know, and how many other cities it could have happened. Maybe a Detroit, or a,
Chicago, baby.
Chicago, maybe. Yes, but yeah. So Daddy was, and so he was a historian to his core. I am so sad that you don't have a chance to meet him. But he knew all about the area and the history, and would love to speak to you more about his health. He was well taken care of in his health, but only because of that reason, and because there was a Black hospital here that had great care. And Komen, which is one of the, I'm pointing like you can see.
Yes.
I walk to work, so IUCCC is right there. It's right over there.
Yes.
There's a one of the residence halls is called Komen Hall, and it was a hospital. It was mixed, but they allowed Black people to go there and to work there. And I was actually born there, and in Komen Hospital. So yeah.
So you do bring up a very important point, which will be the next segment of our conversation. Talking about healthcare inequities that still exist in the United States, and particularly cancer outcome and healthcare inequities. And so part of that was the wonderful um, conference that you and your team put together at the IU Simon Cancer Center yesterday, which I was honored to speak at. And I just want to ask you, what was the thinking that led to this wonderful event, and what were your takeaways moving forward?
So this conference emerged out of the NCI developing a plan to enhance diversity that they required all of their, at least the comprehensive cancer centers, to enact. I'm not really sure if it was all the designated cancer centers as well. So this plan to enhance diversity was broadly developed at the NCI, with some subcategories that were then left to the actual cancer centers to develop. And one of the subcategories was communication. And so I was tapped to co-chair that communication subcommittee for the plan to enhance diversity. And my co-chair, Danique Jengeli, I must say her name because
Yes.
what you saw yesterday was, I mean, we were all involved for sure, and I'm the co-chair and I helped, but all the planning and all the agenda and everything, that was she. Unfortunately, it seems to be daddy week or daddy month. Her daddy suffered an unfortunate health crisis. He's much better now, but she had to rush off and could not actually attend the baby that
Oh, that's your best.
yeah. But anyway, so it was our subcommittee, and our subcommittee here at the Cancer Center, we decided that the subcommittee was going to be focused on increasing the membership of our Cancer Center, not by numbers though, by diversity of researchers and diversity of research, health equity researchers. So we were, this subcommittee, our goal through whatever programs we wanted to develop, was to bring more researchers of color to the Cancer Center as members, and or more researchers who are doing health equity work. And to be a member of the IU Simon Comprehensive Cancer Center, you have to be at IU or Notre Dame or Purdue. So we started with this kind of baby symposium, if you will. We were just restricting it to the Cancer Center, our area here in Indianapolis. And so one of the programs we came up with three main programs. One was a book club, one was something else, but one of them was this symposium, because I am actually a researcher who is ineligible to be a member of my own cancer center because I am not faculty. And so I am a health equity researcher who cannot be a member. And so we looked at, there are other people like me. There might be other people, somebody like me who's a little younger, who's interested in a faculty position, might decide to go a faculty route and become a member. There are other people who don't know how to become a member of the Cancer Center, but who are doing health equity work. And so this symposium, and the reason I know that Maya was interested in the fact that there were so many students there, we very purposefully wanted the students to see the work that was available to be done, the work that they are already doing, what programs are they interested in, what internships are they doing. But we wanted the symposium was created to showcase the health equity work already being done at the Cancer Center, through the Cancer Center, and in progress, and work and to actually illuminate gaps so that the students there could say, that is maybe a gap that I can go into and do this work.
So yesterday there were very wonderful presentations, and I learned a lot. From healthcare screening, from ensuring that maybe you have more Black people and more people of color, Hispanics, participating in lung cancer screening, or access to liver transplant and resources that provides, or even understanding the differences amongst races in terms of tolerability of certain chemotherapies and neuropathy, and how that may inform our choices. So there was a lot that I took from that yesterday, and as great as the conference was, the thing that always challenges me when I attend a conference like this is, now we've had this conversation, and most of the attendees are people who are already interested in health equity. How do we get everyone else who was not in the room to see this as something that impacts all of us, that we all should view as a necessary step in our evolution as human beings?
PIs principal investigators of research, or people in research, really must be educated alongside our patients and our community members that if Black and brown people are given the right set of circumstances, we will come and participate in research. I have a saying that culture trumps education, meaning we run into just as many Black and brown providers who also don't believe that we will come, and therefore they don't offer it to us. I happen to know that you are a huge advocate of clinical trials and introducing clinical trials to your patients, but you are a unicorn. You are a unicorn. And so one thing we need to do is create more people like you. We need to, the providers, every step of a health journey of a lay person should be a provider who understands that only through research are my patients' issues really going to be solved.
Address.
Yes, addressed. Exactly. Only through research. If I am a Black and brown provider, especially with a primarily Black and brown patient base, if I am a family provider, if I am a dentist, if I am, if I'm seeing these people, I don't have to be a big fancy hooty surgeon conducting, crazy experimental trials. We need to find a way to better educate our health providers And health providers are not always, I guess, our patient-facing people, because that's not always physicians, you know. And so I have a talk about how I have a talk that I bring out sometimes. I also have another talk that that is educating researchers about how to bring more people of color into their, it's a longer, and it's interactive, about teaching science. If we don't, I'm sorry, I have a dog trying to climb into my lap. If we don't learn how to communicate our science, so I'm a communication, I'm touted as this communication expert, right? We have got to communicate science better. And in the communication of this science, as people who claim to know science, we have to educate. We have to understand that we also have to educate ourselves, help to educate our peers. And just like we want to educate our patients and our lay people, physicians have to be open to understanding that this is not their expertise. Researchers, principal investigators have to understand that when you are writing a grant, you're going to need to bring in at that level people who can fill in those gaps. The reason you don't have the numbers that you should have ethically and morally in your clinical trial, in your research, is not because we won't come. It's because we don't feel safe enough to come, and we don't even know that you need us. Yes, if you tell us that we are valued, we will come. I don't even know if I answered the question, because I
No,
can't
you did.
so
You
far.
did. And in fact, like you said, maybe we're not even asked because we may have our own biases, thinking that, oh yeah, they're not going to come,
Right.
so I'm not even going to ask. I'm not going to spend the energy to ask. So as we finish here, and if Maya, you have anything, I'd like for you to pop in and ask your question, Maya. But as we finish here, I want you to tell me three things. First is Kathy's rules. We cannot finish this without talking about Kathy's rules for research. And then, second of all, what are the next steps from the symposium?
Okay. So, as you know, I have a talk called, I always forget the title, Kathy's 5 Steps to Possibly Increasing the Population of Black and Brown People in Clinical Trials, or something like that. But step number 1 is definitely education. Increase our knowledge in whatever ways that might mean. For me, it meant coming up with ideas, going ahead and allowing that artist in me to flow. I have these wacky ideas that have really become staples of my recruitment processes, right? So educate us in whatever ways come to us to educate us. After we are educated, you have to allow us to ask questions. You have to give us an opportunity to ask questions. After we've asked our questions and you've answered them, you need to allow us to think about it. This is not a snap decision for us. We have, and different groups have different hesitations, right? Which is where my schooling really becomes very important, because I thought I knew Black people, which I didn't even know them fully, but Latinos and American Indian populations, and we all have mistrust and distrust, but they are housed in different areas, right? So let us think on it. Then after we think on it, guess what? We might have more questions. Make yourself available to us. Make sure that we know that you are there for us for after we think about it, and we have follow-up questions. Let us know. And then the 5th and most final, the most important one is ask us. We have to be asked. If we're not asked, we don't even know. Ask us. Go ahead and, hey, please come participate in this clinical trial. Let us know from the beginning even that you want to educate us, because it is very important for us to participate in clinical trials. And my main statement to the people I'm recruiting is, if we don't participate, we cannot and will not benefit. So that's in a nutshell.
Yes, thank you.
And
And
then,
and then next steps for the health equity work that you're doing from the symposium. What are your takeaways, and how potentially are you going to implement those?
Me personally,
and
at the
the
symposium.
and yeah, the symposium, and also maybe using that as a way of influencing decision makers within your organization.
Yes, so great. So we at the end of the symposium, we had these breakout groups, and each breakout group came up with some ideas for what was needed, what was out there, what gaps they might have seen in the symposium, and then also what they needed as researchers. And the students had such really valuable input, because most of these students have already started a little bit of research on their own. So that was a great that was great input that we had. um, and then this symposium itself, like, it was limited to Indianapolis and to, not really limited, but to the Cancer Center. So the next steps for the symposium are to broaden it to the whole catchment area of the Comprehensive Cancer Center. And so that means including Notre Dame and including Purdue University in, and having their researchers come. That's going to expand our knowledge of what's out there. Have them come and present their research and their gaps. And the symposium group, our committee, will be, along with Dr. Nakshatri and the I won't name the groups because they're all acronyms, but a couple of other groups. We will be getting together to just really look at all this data. It's very rich data that came from this symposium, looking at it and going to our cancer center leaders and the cancer center leaders in those other cancer centers, because Purdue and Notre Dame do have cancer centers as well, and saying, here's what our researchers are saying that they need. Here is the support. Here's the work that they are doing. Here are the blocks that they ran into. Here is what they say they would like to do moving forward, and what these researchers believe would really help to move this research forward. And we're going to be continuing to do this, and we're going to keep track of what we've already asked for that we didn't get, for example, and asking for it again, and gathering the evidence continually to show that this is really important work being done, and it can be even more important in the future.
Thank you so much. As you can imagine, we could talk all day. But as we celebrate this day,
Yeah.
I feel energized, just talking to you. And I hope that anyone who's listening to this video will feel energized and get the key messages that Dr. Kathi Ridley-Merriweather is impacting on us. First of all, do not allow age to squash your dreams. Second of all, be purposeful, and whatever you choose to do it. And third of all, be mindful of what your knowledge will be used for, and use the knowledge for the betterment of our society. And for Black and Brown people, we carry an additional burden, which is to ensure that our immediate community of Black and Brown people like us that are lifted as we hopefully get lifted. And then finally, that this symposium hopefully will continue to address the inequities in healthcare, which is the space that we are in, and hopefully improvement of health equities results in a fulfillment of the desire to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. So with that, I'd like to thank you so much. Any last words?
No, keep on doing what we just need to keep on doing what we're doing, and you especially need to keep on doing what you're doing, what you are doing. I'm just thrilled to be. I feel hopeful. That's my last words. I feel very hopeful.
Thank you. And I am hopeful too.